Kevin, good morning.
Morning.
We're here today to talk about BRISK and the project we've been working on with you and the Fox Sports team. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about our history and what we've done over the years. I first met you 23 years ago now, when your company was launching their first two high definition trucks.
Yeah, back then I was at Game Creek Video, and we were building two new trucks, Patriot and Yankee Clipper, and we were using Diversified West, I believe, at the time to go ahead and build those trucks. So those two trucks were truly state of the art at the time. And the Patriot truck went out, and very first show it did was NBA Eastern Conference Finals and then NBA Finals.
That truck is still in existence. I heard it's behind the wall at the golf,
I think
Tiger Woods golf thing.
Yeah, I think it's down at TGL, and it's serving as a data center.
That's awesome. That was an interesting project. You actually were Diversified's very first customer in the West.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about, and it was because of the history that Game Freak had with you personally, and the team members there, and some of the projects worked with previously. But I think that one really helped our relationship, but it really helped put everyone on the map.
Yeah, and actually Adam Salkin, who worked on that project, is also working with Fox Sports team on the BRISK project. That's our history. Let's go a little into the history of the BRISK, because BRISK is really an evolution or an innovation on a project we started in 2021.
Yeah, back in 2021, we at Fox Sports were looking to figure out how we were going to do the World Cup in 2022 in Qatar. It was coming out of COVID, trying to figure out what made the most sense for everything. The past, we'd always used rental fly packs and be able to sit there and use certain bits from different vendors and different pieces of kit. And we initially, I called initially and asked, hey, can we just go ahead and do a study and help us scope exactly what it is that we need and formulate, what would be an RFI or an RFP that would go out to vendors to see, hey, could you provide this fly pack for us? Or is it cheaper because of the various events that we had? At the time, we knew that we had the World Cup. We had a Super Bowl right after it, and we had a Women's World Cup, all which would traditionally take up traditional rental costs to see what made sense. And after that, we got the answer.
Yeah, now to call it a fly pack is a little bit of a stretch. I think we came to understand it more as it's
a mobile data center.
Yeah. And that packs up and can fit in the belly of an airplane.
Yeah, I think that I undersold it a little bit there. We had very unique requirements. One of which is that it needed to be able to, set up quickly, tear down quickly, and go from a World Cup final in Qatar last week of December to a Super Bowl in Phoenix the last week of January. So to be able to do that, required that it folds up or packs up in such a way that it fits into an aircraft and can be flown. And as you know, none of this broadcast equipment was ever meant to bounce down the road, let alone fly. So it had its unique challenges.
It'd fly upside down in some cases.
There was an interesting one. We had one vendor. The way that the system is designed, in order to be able to fit onto an aircraft and have racks big enough for everything that we needed, we came up with an interesting concept of the top half of the rack folding down onto the back half of the pallet. It fits onto an LD7 volume, so it's a very specific IATA volume that you can ship around. But in order to fit in that, it needed to fold. And when we were talking with our manufacturers, one of the manufacturers said, well, our equipment isn't meant to be transported upside down. This isn't going to work. And my response, if you remember, was, I'm sure that FedEx and UPS really follows the this side up labels on the boxes when they ship them to us.
Yeah, exactly.
But they went through and they did that vendor did some testing, that manufacturer did some testing, and they found that they would prefer a little bit more heat seal put on something. They went ahead and shipped it to us, and we did, and we haven't had any issues with it.
Yeah, fantastic. So we got through the feasibility study. Everything looked good. It was going to solve a ton of problems. We could talk all day about all the problems that it solved, but you pulled the trigger on the system, and we built it over the next 6 months and went through trials and survived hurricanes in North Carolina.
A test flight from Burbank to Carolina to make sure that all of the assumptions that we made with the wire rope isolators and the folding and all of that would work.
So it seems like such a simple innovation to have a mobile data center that folds in half and fits in the belly of an airplane. But at the end of the day, it was a huge success for Fox Sports, to the point where you and your team won an Emmy, right?
Yeah, we won an Emmy for the 22 World Cup in Qatar and the 23 Women's World Cup in Australia, where it was used in multiple. I think every show that it has worked on has at least been nominated for Emmy Awards for technical achievement.
It's an amazing innovation, and you continue to innovate. So we went and did Super Bowl, and then Women's World Cup, which you just mentioned.
And with the Super Bowl, because it's the flexible system, that the mobile system in the 2110 data center, we're able to put out. We needed more resources, more video resources in different areas. In the past, I would have been running a lot of cable or running a lot of fiber and a lot of E to O conversion. But we created what we lovingly refer to as the 7 dwarfs, which were essentially just little throwdown racks that were essentially UPS, MPO, fiber, and a gateway. And that way, wherever we were in the compound or really on the campus in Glendale for the Super Bowl, we're able to go ahead and deploy SDI in, SDI out, 2110 infrastructure, and basically connect into that core infrastructure that we had, and even decentralizing things like not only I/O, but decentralizing glue type functions like up, down, cross, LUTing, tone mapping, that sort of thing. Wherever we actually needed that resource, it was on the network.
So it was called an edge access point for FSG.
Exactly.
So the 7 dwarves, as they're lovingly known, they were built for each of the venues in Qatar originally, correct?
Yeah. So we had the venue kits were in Qatar, and those actually had some JPEG accessing code to connect into the system. And then we then modified the 7 dwarfs from the venue kits to actually just be just straight 2110 IO.
Got it. So that eventually that stayed through World Cup in Sydney, and then the next Super Bowl was New Orleans after that.
Correct.
You also did the Euros in between.
Yep. And for the Super Bowl in New Orleans, we were challenged with basically putting a set on Bourbon Street. I know you spent a couple of days at least at Bourbon Street throughout your life, and really, really narrow streets.
Oh, well, you walked me through the whole thing.
lots of partying there, and not necessarily someplace that you would want to put a mobile unit, let alone could fit a mobile unit. And
your boss, Mike, seemed to really like that venue.
We ended up renting out 4 bars, 2 bars full time during it, and we hosted our daily shows from there. And Mike, he's around here somewhere, was able to get a deal made with those two bar owners, but we couldn't get the technical space or the space needed for the technical footprint. So we sat there and said, well, this FSG concept, the 2110 mobile data center, really worked, but we don't need something that size. We don't need to We don't need something big enough to do a World Cup. We don't need something big enough to do distribution for a Super Bowl. We need something big enough that can do 8 cameras.
Yeah.
So with that, we started looking at equipment that we had and different technology choices that we made. And we made a smaller version of the Fox Sports Dual Event Kit that was just focused on that remote studio production and a smaller version of that studio
But
production.
tied back to that.
But tied back into the FSJE infrastructure. So it is, again, another extension of that infrastructure that could be used really anywhere that we needed to, so long as we go ahead and get connectivity of 1, 10, or 100 gig.
What's fascinating to me is that you've got your data center in Pico in Los Angeles, and FSJE becomes a remote data center that functions on its own, but is not fully operational without Pico supporting it.
Pico or Tempe.
Or Tempe.
Yeah.
And now we're at BRISK, which is another step beyond and another extension.
Yeah. So we created BRISK. We do love our acronyms at Fox.
The BRISK kit, right?
No. So you owe $10. It's a BRISK system. It is a broadcast remote IP studio kit, and saying BRISK kit is like kit. So it's $10 fine.
All right.
Anytime somebody
I'll
does that.
know you later.
Perfect. We were able to sit there and we had this for Super Bowl, and it's kind of crazy to think we ended up using the Super Bowl in our Bourbon Street setup as a proof of concept for the World Cup. So what we did at Bourbon Street, the cameras and presenters were there, and we had all of the Calric Hydra IO that you would need, but that all connected back into the control rooms that we had at the stadium. But not your traditional HRP or not your traditional REMI production. It truly was tightly integrated, not only to the mobile units that were on site in New Orleans, but also to the control rooms that are permanently in Los Angeles at our Pico facility.
Amazing. So BRISK then was used for the Lady Gaga concert, right?
Yeah. And so it did our studio show, it did the Lady Gaga concert. It did all of our daily studio shows. It supported Deportes, anything and everything that happened around the world, around the Super Bowl for Fox in New Orleans came out of BRISK.
And that one was unique because one of the reasons you did it was you couldn't pull a truck into Bourbon Street to actually produce that event. It would have been logistically too difficult to do that. So, but going into that bar, the kit actually needed to be carried up 4 flights of stairs, something like that.
Yeah. So the exact opposite logistical problem that we had going into Qatar, where we had to fit it into the lower deck of an aircraft. Everything that we built, the entire fly pack, had to be carried up. It was a flight of stairs, or 2 flights of stairs, or a circular staircase, one or the other.
As Mike pointed out, made more challenging by your feet sticking to the stairs as you climbed them.
Right? Correct. So when we sat there, we had the design requirement. It was nothing over realistically about 150 pounds, and everything had to be hand carried by 2 people up a flight of stairs.
So based on the success of New Orleans and the Super Bowl, the Lady Gaga concert, and other events, now you're immediately getting into FIFA World Cup 26 planning. You were deep into planning already, but now you're into execution. 26 was a little bit different in that you had a little bit of a move fast, break things sort of approach to this entire project. Now you're integrating with the Fox Pico project management and engineering team. Diversified's working within that structure. How do things change for you?
We definitely have a lot of help on this World Cup, and help can be good and bad, depending on how you want to look at it. With this one, we are more tightly integrated with our facilities at Pico than ever before. While the BRISK system, and so we had one at Super Bowl, And then after we took what we did at Super Bowl and we had a couple of lessons learned, and working with your team, we went ahead and we rubber stamped it, and we now have 6 BRISK systems. Traditionally we go ahead and we have one key location for our jewel events. Again, Bourbon Street for the Super Bowl, Red Square for the 2018 World Cup, the Corniche for the 2022 World Cup, the Eiffel Tower for 2019 Women, Sydney Opera House. Some really picturesque, beautiful locations and beautiful sets. This World Cup is different. This World Cup is across 3 countries. It's across 16 different venues. And realistically, there is no one place that says North America, let alone one place that says the United States.
So what was the challenge you needed to develop for?
So instead of building one set in one location, we're building 12 sets in 12 different venues for the World Cup. And we need to be able to go live from any of them pretty much at any given time. We've figured out with the match schedule that in order to meet that requirement, we needed 6 systems that could go ahead and travel between them while the presenters are going venue to venue to venue to venue. We have a set of crew and we have a set of equipment that basically will be leapfrogging ahead and staying geographically relevant. But all of those systems have to be the same because the presenters want to have the same show, whether they are in Guadalajara or New York, New Jersey. They will, we expect to be able to have the same resources to show the viewer.
Got it. Where are you on the project right now? I mean, we're within 60 days of the event. I think somewhere around 50, actually.
51. No one's counting. So we are in the testing phase. We actually went through and all the systems that have been commissioned. We have a couple of small punch list items, but we from our field shop, actually here up the road in North Las Vegas, we've tested each of the individual systems. We've been working with yourselves and your team, as well as various vendor partners, to go through and really make sure that we are as buttoned up as we can be for the production. I shared with you earlier, I would much prefer that the World Cup starts this Thursday than in 51 days, because then production can stop thinking and adding things, and they can just go ahead and actually execute what we have planned.
And what about your engineering team? Or has your engineering team stopped tinkering? I know that's as much a challenge as anything.
They're always looking for ways to make things better. We have a final configuration that is going into all of the systems. Well, as much as I'd like to sit there and say, hey, it's going to stop on May 8th, which is the day that we've told everybody, pencils down, we have to start packing everything up. It'll probably continue a little bit further through then. But what's really important is that because they are 6 systems, all 6 systems need to be identical, because I can't predict what's going to happen in the matches, in which knockout round matches are going to be more important than others. So we need to keep that consistency across all of the kits.
And from you bring up a great point. Not only does it need to have a consistent experience, your engineers need to be able to go into any venue and experience the same thing in terms of troubleshooting and how the system's built, what the design is implemented exactly the same across them. How do you plan on supporting the system in the field?
So we have, we're taking advantage of the fact that there's an international broadcast center that's located in Dallas, Texas, which is, when you think about it, geographically the central point of all of the venues that are being played. So the core engineering team, in terms of the operating team that are programming the router and making changes and in managing the system, will actually be based at the IBC in Dallas. Also based at the IBC in Dallas for us are going to be our video shaders for each of those 6 systems. And the reason why we chose to put them at the IBC there is that the latency will be consistent from all of the venues. If you think, us as Fox, we're located in Los Angeles, that latency and that response time that they would get on an Irish, or they would get on something from Boston versus Los Angeles or San Francisco would be, wildly different. By centralizing them at the IBC, they're right there where in the center of everything. They're where the signals first hit, and they'll be able to keep consistency.
Let's talk a little bit about the scale of what you're taking on. It's Diversified's doing a portion of this execution. We'll be supporting the systems in the field with our engineering team to some extent. We've been part of the design team, part of the execution commissioning team, bringing this system up online. But we're part of a much larger organization, and it's a unique project for us in that way. And I think you liken this to doing 106 Super Bowls
So,
in
yeah, 100,
40 days, something like that.
104 Super Bowls in 39 days. Like each one of these events, at every level, is truly a Super Bowl. When you look at, the host broadcaster is putting out 50-ish cameras per match. They're making available to us just from the host broadcaster 9,000 hours of content throughout the tournament. We have to ingest and sort through and hopefully, select the best and show to the viewers in the U.S. We have a team of over 1,200 people working on this. Most of them will be based in our Los Angeles facilities. And, those numbers for us are just staggering, particularly when you think that the actual match production in terms of the cameras and the replays that you see from, kickoff to final whistle are being done completely by a host broadcaster. We're not allowed to manipulate that other than doing putting our audio, our final audio stamp on it with our commentators, and we can do a slightly different mix with the effects. Other than that, everything else is coming from a host broadcaster. So realistically speaking, you're talking about 1,200 people that are working primarily on that shoulder programming, the pre and the post for all of the matches and making sure the signals get to everybody at home.
Well, you mentioned 50 cameras at each of the matches. You're deploying nearly 50 cameras yourself.
Yeah,
part of this.
We're actually now up to like 9 cameras per kit, so it's 54 cameras that are going out, and
Wow.
we're sitting there and managing. From generally speaking, it'll be like 2 to 3 venues that will be up at any given time. So that's a pretty staggering amount of resources. Again, just for a studio show and just the remote portion of the studio show, because we're still using, our AR and our XR stages that are in Los Angeles to help do some of the studio programming as well.
Now, you mentioned some of the other things we're doing, like a late ad for you was Fan Fest, and we've been hearing a lot about the fan festivals, even in like mainstream media and news about, are we doing Fan Fest? Are we not doing Fan Fest? What's that vibe going to be?
Yeah, I mean, for us, part of the coverage is always, covering the journey of the fan and making sure that we're showing, our viewers at home what it's like to be in a venue or to, be out at Fan Festival, because, you get that such a visceral reaction from, fans when a goal is scored either for or against them. And, you have the groups of fans together who might not be able to get a ticket for the match, but are able to go and watch communally, whether that's here in the United States or at any of the international watch parties. That's a big part of us. So one of the things that we're doing at some of the selected fan festivals, we're installing permanent or temporarily permanent, I guess, for the duration of the World Cup. A remote pan tilt zoom camera that's coming back to Fox and available to us and all of our affiliates 24/7, so that when that goal is scored or when that match does become final, we're able to translate that emotion to our viewers at home.
Yeah, it's not just images. You're bringing that audio as well, a couple different camera angles. And while it seems like a simple task, if you're going to do it in an unmanned way, so it's just always there and you can go to it when you need to, it gets a little more complicated.
Yeah, anytime that in really at scale, anytime that you're sitting there and trying to, automate something or remote something is really what we're looking to do there. Is we won't have a presence on site, but we'll be controlling it remotely. You have to go through a couple extra steps and a couple extra learnings and thinkings
Yeah, these aren't
about it.
simple webcams, right?
No, and the other thing, the requirement that we have for all of our programming is, all of the images have to be 1080p, HDR, HLG native. So, that is a step and something that we worked with Canon together on to get them to that step with the outdoor camera that we wanted.
Nice. Well, I think we've covered everything at this point. I know we put together a presentation. I don't think we've got time to walk through that at this point, but any closing comments about the experience and
Yeah,
where you're at?
yeah. I mean, this one is going to be it's different on many different levels. But the one I was talking with one of our presenters about a month ago, and something that he said, really started to hit home with me is that, we are lucky enough that we are doing a home World Cup, that we're able to sit there and, do one of these once in a lifetime opportunities. Like, there's not many people that will be able to work multiple World Cups in their home country. He then went on to say, what makes this one especially unique is because of the way that the rights work, all of our colleagues from the BBC or ITV or Globo who are coming into the United States to work the tournament, or all of the teams or all of the fans of the teams of the other countries that are coming in to watch the tournament, any match that they're watching that they're not in the venue at, they're going to be consuming that on Fox Sports or Telemundo. So, like, we have a really unique opportunity here where we truly are showing the World Cup to the world, to all of the visitors coming to the United States. And, traditionally when we're doing these events, we're actually in a foreign country and we're not able to see our own broadcast except at the IVC or through, specialty apps. But in this case, everyone will be able to see it. And, truly the world will be watching us and the production that we're putting on.
Well, as I love to say, no pressure. We're all just counting.
It's all good.
Thanks so much for coming
problem.
out and doing this, Kevin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah.